So when I turned on like my PC earlier, my audio was really muted, and I was like, "What's going on?" And it turns out that I was like charging my PS5 controller, and my computer thought that this was a microphone. So it plugged this into my speaker. Like I was listening to some audio, and it was really tinny and far away, and it was coming from the speaker on a PS5 controller.
Who thought that it would be a good idea to make it default so that the speaker and microphone were on, and then just be like, "Oh, I walked in and my kid was playing Destruction All-Stars and there's just swearing coming out of his controller."
But the amount of stories I've heard about, I could just hear a guy masturbating down his microphone on his PS5 so he didn't turn microphone on. So people don't know, if you buy a PS5, your microphone is always on all of the time by default.
And you can obviously change that default and just like mute there's a little mute button there that's really easy to press, but like the fact that there's so many stories of just people being, "Why is my child hearing these horrible noises come out of their controller while playing Fortnite?"
Nothing will ever be when like Burnout on the Xbox 360 automatically connected to Connect, and every time you like knock someone off the road or like lapped them, it would take a picture. So all that would happen is people would just put it next to their balls. So every time you took them out, so you get a picture of their balls.
So hello and welcome to the Wiki Weekdays podcast. Oh god, that took a turn to begin with, but
I was going to start with that because that was a fun story.
I am your host for the week, Lucas Holland, and I am joined, as always, by Karl Smallwood.
Hello.
And yeah, we just, during the Wiki Weekdays podcast, we fly through 2 wikis sometimes, and sometimes we take way too long to go through 2 wikis.
We do, yes.
You know, we just bring up whatever topics we'd like to talk about that week. Mm-hmm. And I will say as well that I had a little while ago mentioned on my stream of just like, there's a feature on Spotify where it asks you like a question about the episode every week. So this is, you know, aimed towards Spotify listeners listening through the audio version. And it asks like, "What did you think of the episode this week?" But you can change that question. And
can you?
We always ask the question, "Which wiki won this week?" Mm-hmm. So now Spotify will ask you in a poll after you've listened to the episode which wiki won this week.
Okay, because that'd be fun. I highly recommend that everyone like answer that poll as honestly as you can, because maybe we can bring it up on the subsequent episode and like discover who won. Maybe keep a running tally of whose wikis have won. So
it might be a thing of like, maybe in the future we can get something run on like the community tab and add up all the votes and stuff, but for now, at very least, Spotify should actually be getting an answer for which wiki won this week for us.
Okay, that's good. We actually be able to quantify the results instead of just guessing.
If you're on Spotify, give that poll a little nudge, and if you're just on any podcast service, go give us a rating. It helps with discoverability and everything. But yeah, Karl, without further ado, what wiki have you brought for this competition this week?
Well, my wiki is one that's a little thin in terms of content, but I think is fat in terms of discussion. And it is the wiki entry on Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And are you familiar at all with the book series Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
So, not Goosebumps TM?
It's not Goosebumps, no. This is an entirely different thing. It's similar. It is horror for young adults, teenagers.
Was this the Not Goosebumps show that was on Nickelodeon?
I think that was Are You Scared of the Dark?
Ah, it was that one, yeah. There was a lot of shows of this ilk in the 90s, yeah.
Which is what I thought we could use it as a jumping off point, just talk about the idea of like teenage horror and like, you know, young adult literature centering around like the horror themes. Because like I think it's one of the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is similar to Goosebumps, but it's way more metal.
Right, okay.
And you'll know why when I go through the description of it here on Wikipedia. As always, a link to our wiki. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, the links to the wikis are always down below, but I just wanted to tell you where my train of thought went right now.
Okay.
So I went, okay, you said like teenage fiction. Then I immediately went to how long is it going to take before I bring up Twilight? And then I thought about 50 Shades of Grey. And then after 50 Shades of Grey came into my head, I noticed the 50 Shades of Grey that are sitting 10 and a quarter inches long on your shelf right behind you.
Oh, have you noticed? You noticed my Wiggler? Okay, so I guess we can talk. This is my Wiggler. People probably wondering what this is. Like, Lucas, this is a present for you, actually. The Pokemon Wiggler He's a Pokemon. They released a 10.25-inch long plush for Wiglet, and I don't know why everyone seems to think this plush is so funny. Is there an issue with this at all that anyone can see?
No, it's just a Wiglet, right?
It looks fine to me. Let's put it back on my... The thing is, though, I've recorded a bunch of videos for top 10s with that in the background, and I'm wondering how long it's going to take them to notice that it's there.
So apologies for audio listeners there, but that Wiglet, if you want to check out the video version to just see little Wiglet's face on Carl's shelf, then
just Google Pokemon plush Wiglet, and it's like they and everyone's saying they must have known what they were doing. It's like no, it's the thing is they didn't, and that's what makes it funny. They don't realise it looks like a dick.
I don't know what you're on about, Carl. Why would you say that?
Exactly, it's Wiglet, isn't it? I was like doing my stream the other week, and people just like had it on my desk and wasn't explaining what it is. And everyone's like, "Why is there a dildo on your desk?" It's like it's not a dildo; it's a Wiglet.
It is a Wiglet. But
anyway,
speaking of horror stories,
so Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a series of 3 collections of short stories for children, written by Alvin Schwartz and originally illustrated by Stephen Gammell. And in 2011, HarperCollins published editions featuring new art by Brett Hellquist, causing mass controversy among fans of Gammell. And here's where you said you're not familiar with Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, correct?
It's one of those. It sounds a little bit familiar, but it's not something
it's
I
quite
overly
generic,
remember. Yeah.
You know, Are You Afraid of the Dark was a TV show, Goosebumps, thing of itself. I absolutely guarantee you have seen something to do with Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, because the artwork by Stephen Gammell, or Stefan Gammell, depending on how you want to pronounce it, it's spelled with a PH. I've heard people pronounce it Stephen Stefan. So.
I mean, my dad's called Stephen and he spells it with a PH, so...
Yeah, so apologies if he pronounced it Stefan, I'm going to pronounce it Stephen. You've most likely seen some elements of this, because his artwork is simultaneously famous and infamous. Famous because it's so iconic, infamous because, remember, Lucas, I told you this was a series for children, right?
Children/teenagers, I presume, yeah.
But mostly for little kids. Like these are like okay. We're talking on the level of the man with a hooked hand hiding in the back of your car. Campfire stories.
Yeah.
I want to send you here's just one of the most iconic images that Gammell made for this book.
Oh no. So I was expecting when you were teeing this up some really detailed metal as fuck thing, as you mentioned, this goes metal. And it's
do you like that?
No, they've gone down early Tim Burton-esque, really low detail, just there.
Yeah, so and the thing is, it's an awful image, right? But his artwork, this charcoal on paper, almost like smoke, the monster is seemingly emerging from the smoke. His art style is so iconic and so distinct that it basically defined these books, and they made 3 more of them. And it's to the point where the artwork is more famous than the stories, because people know the artwork. It's you'll see creepypastas and SCP entries and stuff using artwork or edited versions of his artwork. And that's why the re-release was so controversial, because Brett Hellquist is the guy who did a lot of the artwork for a series of unfortunate events. So a good artist, but nowhere near as metal or as hood as Gammell's original art.
Yeah, I've not obviously seen any other pictures than that, but a very more usual art style for a series of unfortunate events at the very least.
Yeah. Well, I've got some of the comparisons to send along to you so you can see them, but I just thought that's the Pale Lady, if anyone wondering which one I sent Lucas, which I remember, because the way I learned about Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is apparently it's an icon, or a touchstone for a lot of American kids. My ex-girlfriend was American, and they released a Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie. And my girlfriend, at the time, wanted to watch it because she says, I've heard that the practical effects are really good. Basically, they've somehow managed to fully recreate his original artwork. And she showed me the artwork, and I was like, how the fuck would you recreate that with, practical effects? And Lucas, I'm just going to send you another picture now.
Oh, God, yeah.
Does he look at your face?
Oh, no, I don't...
It's horrifying, right?
It's the Absorbaloff ate the Ring Girl.
The thing is, that's horrifying, right?
It is horrifying, yeah.
I'm not going to spoil the film, but like, again, the Pale Lady, because it's like basically 3 or 4 of the most popular Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark stories are all like combined into like, a mini anthology film.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pale Lady bit is probably one of the tensest moments of me watching a film I've ever experienced. And this is a film for kids.
Yeah, that does not look like a creature built for children. Like, that's genuinely quite terrifying.
But then it makes sense when you realise it was Guillermo del Toro who did it.
Oh, shit, okay.
And that's why his insistence on the practical effects. And the Pale Lady was like one of the ones where like you just see the screen goes red and you see that face and like, fuck that.
But like, I'm not good with horror. I'm a little bit better with horror games than anything else, but like, I'm really bad with horror movies and horror TV shows and stuff. And like, I wouldn't choose to watch that. Like, I see that picture and I go, nope. Well,
that's what I wanted to talk about. Of like, I think Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, like especially the film, it epitomizes something unique to the horror genre. Like whether it be a book or a film or a TV show or a video game. Mm-hmm. And that is the moment where you're like, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
Just like when you see that Pale Lady, you just, no, like when you see that artwork on the front of a book, I'm not reading that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so famous and infamous, because it was a book for kids, but it had that artwork in it.
God.
Now think about how you get a little kid like that from the library and they open that book and they've got that in their imagination. They read a bunch of scary stories. They're not going to sleep that night.
So are these like illustrated books as well? They're not just like weird covers?
Well, no, it's like there's illustrations for some of the monsters in the book. So I'll describe them now. So subsequent reprintings have restored the original Gamel art because of course they have. It's too iconic. The titles in the books are Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark in 1981, more Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and finally, Scary Stories 3, more Tales to Chill Your Bones. And that's what I love about it. It's like the juxtaposition of more tales to chill your bones really doesn't sell how fucking creepy that artwork is.
They will actually chill your bones.
See, that's me. It reminds me of like Goosebumps, isn't it? And there's a couple of Goosebumps books and episodes of the show that just go really hard out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think like one of the ones for me is I have, maybe not on my shelf behind me, but I have a collection of Goosebumps books. The one that always scared me is Monster Blood, which is basically just Blob for kids.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And they talk about how like the monster blood is basically this creature that just absorbs moisture. Because instead of eating people, but they say like, oh, it gets stuck on your hand and it absorbs all the moisture and you can feel the moisture being drained out of your hand. That's a real metal monster for some kids.
Yeah, and I actually, out of nowhere, had another similar kind of creature thing pop up on my TikTok the other day. Mm-hmm. And it was a clip from the Grimm Tales movie, I think it was.
Okay.
And it's like this mud creature from the well that like stole this little girl's face.
Mud creature. Because there's a couple of like those like kids shows that just randomly go so hard. I don't know. Oh, the Brothers Grimm.
The Brothers Grimm. It must have been. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. The mud monster. Okay, that looks horrifying. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's just like a clip of this little girl running around like without a face, basically trying to like scream for help. And I was, oh my god, I didn't realize like this Brothers Grimm movie that was presumably for children just went so hard and they're horrifying.
Well, that's the thing people are going to say. Is like the original Grimm's fairy tales were a lot more macabre than the sanitized versions that we got from Disney and the like. For example, the one that everyone knows is like Cinderella. In the original Grimm's fairy tale version, like the ugly sisters cut off their toes to try and fit their feet into the glass slipper, and they're forced to dance in iron shoes that are heated till they're red hot until they die. And they just like, let's just sanitize that for the kids. But you can still see elements of it though, like Hansel and Gretel. There's no real way to kind of like sanitize Hansel and Gretel.
It's like, no, she wanted to eat these kids and they burned her for it. It's like,
which is the weird thing, isn't it? Of like some of the stories they're able to sanitize, but Hansel and Gretel is still about 2 kids murdering an old woman. Mm-hmm. And I think The Simpsons, but it's one of the few Simpsons like Treehouse of Horrors that actually makes me. I actually don't like watching it. It makes me uncomfortable. It's the Hansel and Gretel parody. Because the lady they got to play the witch when she's kicked into the oven just screams really realistically, and I don't like it. Anyway, the 3 books each feature numerous short stories in the horror genre. Author Schwartz drew heavily from folklore and urban legends as topics of his stories, researching extensively and spending more than a year writing each book. Acknowledged influences include, but are not limited to, William Shakespeare, T.S. Eliot, Mark Twain, Joe Chandler Harris, Bennett Cerf, and Jan Harold Brunvand. And presumably, like, the original Grimm's fairy tales and stuff. But like you said, it's like a collection of folk tales, like almost campfire stories, but these are considered like the definitive versions of those tales because of how well written they are.
That's cool, yeah. And I will say, I always find horror literature way more exciting when it's in short story form.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of the short story and the anthology film. Because I think horror is my favourite genre because it's the one that's the most experimental. I feel that horror has so much potential for experimentation within it and just good ideas being realised on a very low budget.
It's like, even when you think about, how can you say that when there's 10 Saw films and 8 Paranormal Activities or whatever? And it's like, but those initial movies were actually doing something different.
Yeah, and even within those movies, there is still a lot of creativity. Say, like, it's the torch porn genre, but they keep trying to top themselves. Yeah. And one of the examples I use of that is the VHS series, which, if anyone's not familiar with, is an anthology horror series where it's just a bunch of small, short films, like, carried by an overarching narrative. And so many of them, you look at them and go, these are good 10 to 15 minute long films. Or, like, short stories or, like, short horror films. If these were an hour long or an hour and a half long, they'd be so fucking boring because the gimmick would be you get old after like the first 20 minutes.
Well, that's what I kind of found with things like The Ring, for example. Mm-hmm. I think that's a way better 20-30 minute story.
It is, yeah. And I think the original Japanese version is a lot shorter.
Oh, right. Okay, that does make sense then, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things like, I think horror is really good for that. And there's so many horror films that I think suffer because they're too long. Mm-hmm. I remember The Babadook being fucking terrifying to me until you see the monster. And then it starts being scary. And then you got like another half an hour of the film left. But like VHS, even if the film's not that great, like these short films, but by 20-minute mark, it's over. So if you don't like it, then you got another one.
And that is generally the premise, isn't it? Of a good horror. It doesn't have to be... Horror isn't always about monsters, but say, for example, a monster movie is like the moment you show the monster, reveal the monster, it's like generally a lot less scary.
Yeah, and that's why I'm a big fan of like Stephen King's stories because like he is a master of. He has an interesting idea. It's just one interesting hook, one interesting idea. Explore that a little bit, and then you're done. You don't need to explore it anymore. Mm-hmm. That's what I think like is my favorite thing about horror is that. Anything can be scary because, what is scary is subjective. Like the people out there, you can have a straight up it is a shark attacking you. Mm-hmm. Like you have those feel like, let's just break it down. So let's say there's an idea of what I'm talking about. Someone's like, well, horror's, like there's so many, they may be thinking like action movies or sci-fi movies. Like, so let's say you're scared of sharks. There are so many different movies you can do just based on that one concept.
Including you can have, like, a tornado of sharks.
Yeah, you can have a straight up just you are in the water and a shark is after you. Mm-hmm. You can have you are on a boat and the water's slowly filling up. You can have just like you are trapped in open water. You can have you're underwater and the shark's coming for you. You can have like you're in an aquarium and it's great. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's one of the things I enjoy so much about horror and just the creativity often shown that because there's so many limitations. Limitations usually lead to creativity, and creativity, if it's not entertaining, if it's not entertaining and impressive, it's at least worthy of praise because they tried something different. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And it normally is those limitations that make them interesting because generally, the way that Hollywood movies still work in terms of horror is that they generally try to find like what will be the next Saw of like here's a movie we can give like a couple of $1 million to and hope that it makes hundreds of millions because horror can generally be done quite cheap and I say those limitations are like budgetary and stuff they make people go out of their way to make something like The Blair Witch. Yeah.
Still one of the most successful movies ever made in terms of initial budget to return on investment. Mm-hmm. And just to single out the VHS series, I'm just going to mention I forget which one it was because like 8 of them. I think it's like VHS 94 or something like that. There was like a short horror vignette in that about a lady who is sitting in on a wake. It's like, oh, we need you to just watch this coffin. But then there's a storm. And I'm going to say that short vignette by just some no-name nobodies who made like a 20-minute horror movie has one of the single best practical effects I have ever seen in any film. Like, straight up, it might be one of the to the point where the person that I was watching it with, we both actually sat up and went, hang on a second, how did they do that?
And what is this effect?
There's a guy with no head. But he's not got no head, he's got half his head is missing. And we both straight up went, how did they do that? Like we looked and went, we cannot figure out where the seams are on this effect. This might be one of the best practical effects I have ever seen for like, you know, this kind of like body disfiguration. And we were like, how? And that's the thing, I watch a lot of horror movies and I was like, how did they do that? And when a movie makes me do that, that's worthy of like singling out for praise.
Yeah, exactly. Even just if it's for that one small moment that you can mention of like, you don't have to watch this whole thing. It's even if it's a short movie, just go watch that one scene.
What's it? The movie, like the vignette, is 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
So it's like saying, even if you've not wasted your time. You know, you've only wasted like 20 minutes, the same time you spend watching an episode of The Simpsons. But anyway, the books, I'm just going to go through like the various stories in them now. And Lucas, I want you to tell me if there's like one that catches your eye, because again, it highlights the creativity within the field of like horror and short horror. So the first book contains 29 short stories that Schwartz collected from folklore, collections and archives, as well as from interviews with informants. The book stories include jump stories that end with a jump scare. I love the idea of a story ending with a jump scare. That's some balls, that, innit? Folk music, including the hearse song, a story involving voodoo death, a story involving a witch, the story of a man who shapeshifts into an alligator.
Specifically, just an alligator.
Just shapeshifts into an alligator. Okay. A game called The Dead Man's Brains, a boogeyman story, or bogeyman if you're in America, and a number of urban legends, including the hook, the poison dress, the killer in the back seat, and the babysitter, and the man upstairs. And that might be one of the most like creepy, like urban legends that just keep every couple of years it comes back. Are you familiar with the babysitter and the man upstairs?
Oh no, I thought you were saying they were two separate stories there, but no, I'm not.
Okay, so the babysitter in the upstairs is like, it's an urban legend, and a lot of people purport that it exists, but the basic story is, and I'm just going to go to the Wikipedia page for it, is that prevalent as a Wikipedia page. The legend posits a teenage girl is watching television all night while babysitting after the children have been put to bed upstairs. The phone rings, and an unknown caller tells her to check on the children. The girl dismisses the call, but when the anonymous caller dials back several times, the girl becomes increasingly frightened. Eventually, the babysitter calls the police to inform her that they will trace the next call. After the stranger calls again, the police return her call, advising her to leave immediately. She evacuates the home, and the police meet her to explain that the calls were coming from where do you think?
From inside. Inside
the house, yeah. And there's multiple versions of the story. And the one that my friend told me that when I was a kid, showing how prevalent this like urban legend is, this cultural folk tale, is that he told me the version of, and it's like a girl is like, the kids keep crying, calling up the parents. Like, why are the kids crying? It's like, I don't know. There's a really creepy like clown toy in the middle of the room, and just like the parents say, there's no clown, and it's a guy in a costume who just sat in the corner of the room. And there's a couple of actual real time stuff like this has happened, like, and that's why it lends a bit of veracity to the tale.
Yeah, because something as simple of just like, oh, there's a creep in the house. And yeah, that, and there's like a similar story that I heard once, and it was like the family were away, and they like get a voicemail, and it's just like, oh, something's wrong with the baby. And then it's like, oh wait, we've got loads of voicemails. It's like they keep listening. It's like, no guys, I really need you to like get back to me. And then yeah, like they listen through a few more, and it turns out that the baby's got superpowers, and it's Jack from The Incredibles.
See, that's it. That's the twist on a twist, isn't it? Yeah, there's so many of them. They're all terrifying. It's like a popular like reading pastime of mine is like the creepy subreddit of like, you know, or No Sleep, I think it's called, where people like, you know,
God, yeah,
basically they just create short horror stories, and it's like people say, oh, they're fake, but it's like, So's a movie.
Yeah.
But a movie can still be entertaining if you suspend your disbelief. But yeah, it just says there's a couple more here. The Legend of a Cannibalistic Butcher. A cautionary tale involving a girl playing a drum. The Legend of Mistletoe Bow. A variant of the folk song, The Irish Washerwoman. A legend involving 3 men in a nursing home. The story of a man who tries to escape from death. The Vanishing Hitchhiker story, a popular folk and campfire story. The story from Lincoln Marsh was alleged to be inhabited by evil spirits. The story of a feral child. A story of a poltergeist and psychokinesis. A selection of jokes and humorous stories. And the series concludes with a variant of the Hearst song featured in the first book. And there's like many, many more.
I want to know what a cautionary tale about playing drums or whatever it was about.
Let's just, you know what, let's find out. So, playing drums, scary stories to tell in the dark. Let's see if we can get the drum. So we have now we've got moved swiftly on to the scary stories to tell in the dark, like Wiki.
Oh, okay, cool.
So we just like the.
I just want to know what is the horror story around this drum.
Well, I'm having a look. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like 12 paragraphs long, so we could just read the story. It wouldn't take that long.
If you want to read the story to us,
I guess to end on, we can read the story.
With Karl.
But before we do that, I'll just mention on the Wikipedia page we have the reception, which includes the controversy, because the series is listed by the American Library Association as being the most challenged series of books from the 1990s and the 7th most challenged from the 2000s. It made the list again in 2012. Complaints typically centered on its violence, disturbing subject matter, and potential unsuitability for younger readers, as well as religious concerns. Critics have called the stories, many of which feature macabre topics such as murder, disfigurement, cannibalism, sick and repulsive, and really disgusting, not at all appropriate for children. The nightmarish artwork, it actually says that, by Stephen Gammell, has also been the subject of criticism.
Yeah, that artwork is not fitting for children.
Yeah, and then just in response to the controversy, it's like, well, kids are a lot tougher than you give them credit for. Kids like to be scared. These are basically the campfire stories all the parents moaning about it told themselves. It's the same thing, isn't it, of parents complaining about stuff that they did when they were younger. Like, oh, all these kids on TikTok eating Tide Pods. It's like, well, what dumb shit did you do when you were a teenager? That, when, you'll happily brag about over a couple of beers when you're with your old friends?
Yeah, and I will say, these children can speak for themselves, because I never enjoyed getting told scary stories when I was a kid. Like, I could deal with creepy stories that weren't scary, but I never liked being genuinely scared.
Well, one thing I want to do before, I'll read the story yourself. And is that the one you'd like reading, or is there another one you'd like to hear?
I'm curious about the drum.
You're curious to hear about the drum,
because
okay, so
a lot of the other ones, I'm like, oh, well, I can see where, that story might go. I've heard of stories about poltergeist before, but I'm like, what's so haunting about this drum?
Yeah, so I guess before I do that, the last thing I need to do is just show you, here's some artwork by the new artist. Okay. And this was for the story, The Haunted House. So so you see that, yeah? Just describe it to the folks at home.
So that's just a black and white, very traditionally drawn picture of just a man in a suit holding a Bible, getting grasped by a spooky lady, a skeleton ghost lady, long hair, big flowing dressing gown or whatever on, and he just looks a bit creeped out, and it's just a very generic looking horror still, I would say.
It looks like something you see on the front of a Harry Potter novel, doesn't it?
Yeah,
or any young adult novel.
Yeah.
Here's what Stephen Gammell drew, basing his inspiration on the same story.
Oh,
just your response says it all.
That is that look again, very almost early Tim Burton-esque of it
Tim
looks
Burton
like a
wishes it was this metal
from that movie. Yeah, Tim Burton wishes it was this metal, but it just is a creepy zombified, just beaten up corpse with straggly hair, and that looks like a genuine picture of a 3D model. Yeah,
and that's the thing. You've probably seen that image in a lot of creepypastas.
Probably.
Because they use a lot of Gammell's art for them. Because it's very unsettling.
What picture was that from?
That is the, just double check, The Haunted House.
That's from The Haunted House, right, okay.
Yeah. Which is in the live action film. That version of the story is told in that, and they have a live action version of that. design.
I'm not going to want to click on our Discord call for a while.
It's really unsettling. It's so unsettling. But I know it's why it's so good. But anyway, are you ready to hear the story of The Drum?
Let's go for it.
Okay, so The Drum is a story from More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It's about two young girls who are promised a drum if they behave badly. The story is based on an old folk tale called The Pear Drum, which also inspired the Lucy Clifford story, The New Mother. So I guess I'll just read through the synopsis as it exists on the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark wiki.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, people like the way that I tell it. I'm not going to go, full on
dramatic reading mode here or anything, yeah.
But I'll just read it as, as clearly and concisely as I can. Once there were two children. Dolores was 7 and Sandra was 5. They lived in a small house in the country with their mother and baby brother. Arthur, their father, was a seaman and was away on a long voyage. One day, Dolores and Sandra were running across a field near their house when they met a gypsy girl playing a drum. Her family was camping in the field for a few days. As the girl played, a little mechanical man and woman came out of the drum and danced. Dolores and Sandra had never seen such a drum, and they begged the girl to give it to them. She looked at them and laughed. "I will give it to you," she said, "but only if you are really bad. Come back tomorrow and tell me how bad you are, and we will see." As soon as the sisters got home, they started shouting, which was against the rules in their house. Then they wrote all over the walls with their crayons. At supper, they spilled their food, and when it was time for bed, they wouldn't go. They did everything they could think of to upset their mother. They were really, really bad. Early the next morning, they hurried off to find the gypsy girl. "We were really bad yesterday," they told her, "so please give us the drum." But when they told her what they had done, the gypsy girl laughed. "Oh, you must be much worse than that if I am to give you the drum." As soon as Dolores and Sandra got home, they pulled all the flowers up in the garden. They let the pig out and it chased it away. They tore their clothes. They sloshed in the mud. They were a lot worse than the day before. "If you do not stop," their mother said, "I will go away and take Arthur with me. You will get a new mother with glass eyes and a wooden tail." That scared Dolores and Sandra. They loved their mother, and they loved Arthur. They could not imagine being without them, and they began to cry. I don't want you to leave. I don't want to leave you, their mother said, "but unless you change your behaviour, I will have to." "We'll be good," the girls promised. They did not really believe their mother would go away. "She was just trying to scare us," Dolores would say later. "We'll get the drum tomorrow," said Sandra. "Then we'll be good again." Early the next morning, they rushed to find the gypsy girl, and when they found her, she was playing the drum again, and the little man and woman were dancing. They told the gypsy girl how bad they had been the day before. "That must be bad enough to get the drum," they said. "Oh no," said the gypsy girl. "You must be much worse than that." "But we promised our mother to be good from now on," said the girls. "If you really want the drums," said the gypsy girl, "you must be much worse." "It's only for one more day," Dolores told Sandra. "Then we will have the drum." "I hope you're right," Sandra said. As soon as they got home, they beat their dog with a stick. They broke the dishes. They tore their clothes to pieces. They spanked their baby brother Arthur. Their mother began to cry. "You are not keeping your promise," she said. "You will be good," said Dolores. "We promise," said Sandra. "But we can't wait much longer." And their mother said, "Please try." Early the next morning, their mother was awake. Dolores and Sandra ran to see the gypsy girl. They told her all about the bad things they had done the day before. "We were horrid," said Sandra. "We were worse than we have ever been," said Dolores. "Can we now have the drum?" "No," said the gypsy girl. "I never meant to give it to you. It was just a game we were playing. I thought you knew that." Dolores and Sandra began to cry. They rushed home as quickly as they could, but their mother and Arthur were gone. "They were out shopping," said Dolores. "They'll be back soon." But they were still not back when it was time for lunch. Dolores and Sandra felt lonely and scared. They wandered through the fields for the rest of the day. "Maybe they will come home when we get back," said Dolores. When they got home, they saw through the window that the lamps were lit and there was a fire in the fireplace. But they did not see a mother and Arthur. Instead, there was a new mother, her glass eyes glistening, her wooden tail thumping on the floor. And that would scare the fucking shit out of you if you were a little kid, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're bad, we'll place your mum with a scary-ass statue with a wooden tail.
Yeah, fair enough. And, yeah,
and I think that might be the whole story. And that's like 200 words.
Mm-hmm.
And I would highly recommend people go seek out this book if they're able to. I think you could pick up collections of it for a couple of dollars on Amazon. It's well worth just a read. Same as a lot of the Goosebumps books.
I also enjoy the kind of, because it's a kid's book, trying to teach the kids a lesson element of that story of
yeah, Aesop's Fables sort of thing, and Grimm's fairy tales to a degree of he's about teaching don't be naughty, don't be naughty, or your mum will be upset.
I was genuinely expecting it to go further of then the girl requested them to kill their mother to get the drum.
Well, that's you don't know how hard some of the other stories go, because that's based on a really, really old folktale. Mm. There's other folktales that have a lot more metal than that one.
I was just curious about, what is the premise of a story where the drum is, some kind of horror object?
Yeah, you can see that being a typical thing. It's the little kids, what is it, Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe? Well, like the little shit in that betrays all his friends for some like Turkish delight. I'll never forget that. He sells out like Lion Jesus for some Turkish delight. What a legend! But yes, that was scary stories to tell in the dark. Like a really fun, not fun if you like horror, but it's like it's horror for little babies. And babies, quite literally, babies' first horror. Not
if you've got the original artwork in there, though. Jesus Christ!
It's almost like Geiger-esque.
Yeah.
Like it is very, very upsetting.
And just so people know who you're referring to, that's the person who like the artwork for like the Alien franchise.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah. So.
Like Giger's the one who did all like the weird biomechanical artwork that inspired Alien. And I'm surprised like Gamel's not more well known, but I guess presumably because no one wants that shit on the wall.
Yeah.
I don't have it on my wall. I have it above my bed. So I know it's so scary. Well, quick count of the covers, babe. Let's go.
If I come round and that's on your wall, I'm not cuddling in your bed anymore, Carl.
It's the kind of thing that if you had it on your wall, like you put it in your study, your kids won't go in there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's the level of scary that it is. But you had that shit on your wall, your kids aren't going in there anymore.
Definitely not.
It's like the visual equivalent of one of those water bottles used to spray on dogs. That was a scary story to tell in the dark.
Yeah. Thank you for your wiki, Carl. It was
no problem.
I get like it went a different way than I was expecting because I was expecting it to just be like, oh, it's a silly thing like Goosebumps was.
Well, that's the thing.
And it kind of is, but the artwork element changes it all up. Yeah,
that's what makes it. Yeah, it's the artwork makes it seem way scarier. It is because your imagination, like your imagination is the scariest thing. But like, when you've got that artwork for inspiration, it's next level.
Yeah,
because when you look at like the cover of Goosebumps, but like Slappy the ventriloquist doll's dummy, that's a quite scary. Now imagine Slappy the doll in Gamel's art style.
Yeah,
you'd be that's weird. All that idea of the ability of imagery to alter the way something's perceived.
It elevated the stories.
Yeah.
Oh dear. I mean,
I looked at the opening title of the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is, this chapter is filled with jump stories you can use to make your friends jump with fright. So I guess the whole point is at the end you can yell out the final line to scare your kids.
Oh dear. Well, I don't want to be scared anymore, Carl.
Okay.
So I think we should move on.
Yeah, no problem.
And I don't want you to send any more of these pictures to me.
Can I just send one more?
Oh god, no.
And it's just, Joe, we talked about the alligator one.
Okay, yeah.
And this is just a really cool picture of an alligator that he drew. It's like, King.
Okay, yeah, alligator. That's just a really cool, shadowy alligator figure.
Yeah, shadow alligator.
The shadow alligator. That sounds like a... Is it actually a Yu-Gi-Oh card?
It's probably a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
It's probably a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Just shadow alligator. Oh, but... Carl, should we take a quick little break before we move on?
Okay, let's do that. So, Lucas, have you been suitably spooked?
I have been suitably spooked.
Suitably big. Thing is, do you have the balls to put that pale lady picture as a thumbnail?
I don't know if I do. I don't. We'll see how I feel on the day.
It's so spooky.
It really is. I'm not sure whether it's going to get clicks or just scare people away legitimately.
People love horror stuff.
But that's the thing is, I'm coming from the perspective of someone who doesn't love horror things.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just like, oh god, no. But speaking of less horrifying things, Carl, have you got anything that you would like to plug for us while we take our intermission?
The only thing I'd like to plug is that I'm now currently the interim host of Top 10s, Biographics, and Geographics. So if anyone happens to follow any of those channels or just top 10 lists, histories of people or places, you follow those for new videos every week.
Or if you just want to see more of Carl's face.
Yeah, not sure why I don't want that. But.
I mean, there's plenty of people out there that I'm sure do, Carl, whether you like to admit that fact or not. But are those videos started going out now?
They have, yes.
Yeah, because I know that obviously they wanted to build up a bit of a backlog of videos before they started pushing those. But yeah, you can go find Carl over on those channels now.
Cheers. How about yourself? Anything you're going to plug?
Well, yeah, I am going to plug something, and it's that we are currently, putting this podcast out on the 23rd of August, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Did I just say the right words? 23rd of August, 2023.
Yeah.
Something just doesn't sound right when it comes out your mouth, but...
It's like, wait, yeah.
On the 25th of August, we are going to be hosting a rock band karaoke event, and it's just for, any of our UK listeners that happen to be able to get down to Sheffield for the 25th of August at 8 p.m. in the Meltdown Gaming Bar in Sheffield. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That is correct, yes.
Yeah, we'll be playing Rock Band, and, there will be the guitars there and the microphone for some karaoke shenanigans, and just, it'll be a fun way to just hang out with the Fat Fiend crew, and we are presenting just a nice Rock Band karaoke night for anyone to come in. It's free entry, and obviously, it's not like we're asking American viewers to come over, right? It's just...
Of course, yeah.
If you happen to be available and it's not too much effort, we'll be there and we'll be just hosting that fun little event. But the hope is that we can do more in the future, so we don't go into panic mode, spending a bunch of money trying to get to Sheffield. But
yeah, the hope is that we can do it every month. And before anyone asks, no, we don't have the drum kit. But Lucas, you recently bought a drum kit.
So yeah, I bought one, but it was on the cheap, and it's untested because they didn't have the equipment to test it. So they were like, everything else that I bought from that person in a job lot, it all works fine. So I have no reason to believe that that wouldn't work. So I'm going to take the word for it. Hopefully, I've got a drum kit sorted for it, but I'll have to wait and see with that because I still need to get it posted to my house. Test it all out. eBay is a fickle place, I might have just bought a drum kit that doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, so. And then you got to get it back to my house, and we're going to get to the venue. And also as well, I just thought for the initial one of the drum kit on Rock Band, a great addition, but from my experience of when you play Rock Band with the drums, all you hear is... It is so loud. The drum kit is... And I'm hoping... It being in a club with music and a microphone, it'll be drowned out.
Exactly.
At least a little bit.
And that will, be up to us to test. So we're not going to confirm it for the future or anything. There's a lot of if, buts, and maybes, but it's a hope. It's a potential hope.
I do like as well, when we announced it, the people who were sending me oh, Carl, here's more guitars to buy. It's do you think we hosted the event without having guitars?
But yeah.
But anyway,
I picked a Wiki, Carl, that may be tied into this whole thing, because I just figured to help plug and talk about the event, we could just talk about the video game Rock Band. Okay,
because a mistake that I always make is I will use Rock Band and Guitar Hero interchangeably, because to me, they're basically the same game. I know they have diehard fans either side.
They're really, really not. And when Carl kept saying, we're going to be playing Guitar Hero for the event, I kept being Carl, we're not. We're using Guitar Hero controllers, but we're playing Rock Band.
Yeah. So, maybe, educate me on the difference between the two series. Because I know, Rock Band's the one that actually got support.
Yes.
Rock Band's the one that's not dead.
Rock Band, to this day, is still getting DLC updates.
Yeah.
So it's still having music added to the store, and we'll get into how long that's been supported for. But Rock Band is a music video game developed by Harmonix with an X, so that they're cool. And it's published by MTV Games and distributed by Electronic Arts. And it's MTV Games, that was surely a thing.
And EA as well.
Obviously EA is still rocking, but yeah, it's one of those untarnished EA titles as far as I'm really concerned.
It's one of the few series as well where they actually have the justification for having a shit ton of DLC and microtransactions, because sometimes you just want to pay for one song.
Sometimes you just want to pay
perfect sense.
£2 for a song? It's fuck it.
It makes perfect sense, because that's almost in line with what a single high quality download would cost you back in the day anyway.
Yeah, and bear in mind these are with Rock Band, I remember with Guitar Hero, the first one, it was all covers, and then they slowly started getting more and more bands on board. by the time Rock Band came around, it was like, there was the odd cover. Bear with my throat, apologies. But there was the occasional cover by Rock Band 1, but for the most part, it was working off like original masters at this point.
Yes.
And it's like the quality is actually ridiculously good for a lot of these songs.
There's a bunch of stories because people might forget, like younger listeners might not realise how big of a cultural phenomenon Rock Band and Guitar Hero were. Because there was a period on YouTube where you could not Google a song. Because you would get the Guitar Hero or Rock Band hacked version of it. And like Freddie Wong, like one of the, I think he's still going, still pretty big content creator, got his start playing Guitar Hero on YouTube. There's still videos of him.
Freddie Wong got his start with like Rocket Jump and stuff like that.
No, he was playing Guitar Hero covers first. Like he was at the Guitar Hero World Championships, which were a thing.
Also, I'm pretty sure Freddie Wong is currently doing like not Critical Role, but like Dimension 20 or something like that. I can't remember the name of it because I don't watch them, but like one of those big D&D streams. So like, yeah, definitely still around making content.
It's one of those things as well where I don't follow other YouTubers, which means, it means I'm kind of out of the loop, but it also means that when like drama happens and people ask me about it, I'm like, who? But no, it's like just an idea of how big it was, and the thing.
And we'll get properly into it.
Yeah.
But
you mentioned masters, and there were a few bands who did not have the masters of their songs. And there was a period where it was seen as being like quite a big deal to be in a Guitar Hero or Rock Band game. So some bands re-recorded and created new masters for their songs.
That's crazy.
I think like The Clash maybe did that, or Sex Pistols maybe, because they didn't have, or the Ramones. There was like a punk band who didn't have like an original master of one of their songs. They re-recorded it.
That's really cool.
For the game.
Yeah, and I remember we were playing it on stream the other week, and it was like we played Ace of Spades, and it's like the 08 version, and presumably, again, a similar thing of like the 08 re-recording, they could get masters of, but they're like, back in the day, the masters are probably long gone.
Yeah. I think, though, in terms of being a game, I get why they want to have the masters, because if you all want to play Ace of Spades, I want to pretend that I'm like, in the band, I'm playing alongside Lemmy. But in terms of it being a game, I much preferred the first Guitar Hero game being all covers, because then in terms of the story of you being a band, playing covers and gaining success that way makes sense. And I think even the final like cutscene in like the original Guitar Hero, when it shows your band on the front cover of like big news like about your world tour, it says, "I never thought we'd get this far playing covers." and I kind of like that because it made it feel like you were in a band playing covers of other people's music, but being successful doing so.
I mean, I get that element of it, but in that scenario, I would much prefer it's like when you beat the campaign, you unlock the masters versions of them all, or something.
Which would be too difficult, yeah. And then having a 50-50 approach would just be weird, so I get why they do that.
It's like, for Guitar Hero, 1 kind of set list, I think that would be achievable. For a set list that they had in later games, where it's like 90 songs, or like the rock, the Rock Band version where you like keep getting more and more from the store, like every week, like that would be so much more work, because you're literally recording your own version of every single one of those songs, as well as putting the masters in. Yeah. But like, if a set list of 30 songs, that would have been a really cool idea.
Yeah, and I did like that the first couple did have covers in there, because it just made the songs feel unique to the game. It allowed them to put their spin on it. And I think the reason they did that is because they couldn't get the masters of a lot of those older songs.
And so I think, obviously, the first one especially it's like, well, why would we want to be associated with this like random arcade game with plastic guitars? Like,
yeah, it's like, we'll give you the rights to the song, but we're not going to give you our masters. And it's like, okay, so we'll just re-record it. And that's like some pretty good, artists and musicians in house.
Yeah, it did really throw me off though when I first played Guitar Hero 3, and it was like, most of them weren't covers at that point, and then one of them was that I came along, and I was like, why does this not sound right? And then it's like, oh, it's as made famous by this band. Right, got it.
Yeah, and one of the cool things that they did is, like, the level of effort they went to was pretty impressive. Like, with the first Guitar Hero, like, for example, the Iron Man cover they did. they asked Ozzy, like, how did you do like the voice effects for, like, I am Iron Man? He's like, I spoke through a fan. And then they went, do you know what kind of fan? He went, I don't fucking know. So they tracked down like his sound engineer and got the exact same kind of fan for the cover.
It's like,
because they care. They give a shit.
That, like, Ozzy Osbourne knew anything that was going on in that moment.
No, you knew that he spoke through a fan, though. They tracked down his sound engineer and they said, what fan was it? And they knew, and they tracked down the exact same model of fan for the cover because they cared.
That's really cool.
And I like that they did. So go on, tell me about Rock Band now.
Well, the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions were released in North America on November 20th, 2007. Whole 16 years ago. And then there was a PS2 version released December 18th, and a Wii version June 22nd, 2008. And, you know, one thing to mention now, while we're talking about Rock Band, is that right now, Xbox have just announced in the last week or so, the Xbox 360 like store is going to be dropped from next year.
Does
so
that
if you
include...
do want to go buy like the original Rock Band game and stuff like that, then a lot of Xbox 360 content is going to be gone in the next year. So go panic buy all those things. A lot of backwards compatibility stuff you'll be fine with, though.
Yeah, it's so weird that like just stuff can go missing in this day and age. It baffles me.
Yeah, and I know that the argument is, well, you know, hardware will deteriorate over time too. It's like, yes, and there would be... It's like, I understand the upsides and downsides of both arguments, and I get that having to keep up purchases for like a store that's 20 years old is like not worth the resources and stuff, but it is still a shame. It's like in terms of preservation and stuff, just there's going to be a bunch of Xbox Live Arcade games and stuff that never got ported that are just going to cease to exist anymore. Yeah.
It was like just when you were telling me that sometimes, like, because people making Rock Band give a shit, they'll occasionally renegotiate licenses for songs they lost the license to. And you'll just get updates when you boot it up of like, oh, we got the license back for these 3 songs, enjoy.
Because, like, there's a lot of... with Rock Band, one of the impressive things that he did was it wasn't like Guitar Hero where you buy a new game and you've got a new set list. It was like that, but you also were able to import for a small fee or like an included code if you got like the non-pre-owned version. Like if you bought it new, you got a code to import the set list, and if you didn't have the code, you could pay like £5 or whatever to import your songs onto the next game.
Which includes all the numerous Rock Band... You got like Rock Band Beatles on there, haven't you? Which was like...
No.
Is that the one that's not on there?
That's the one that's not allowed to exist. Nothing is allowed to touch or be touched from Beatles Rock Band. God. Beatles Rock Band is its own insular experience that the Beatles are like, get the fuck away from us.
See, I get it to a degree of like, yeah, it's our music, and we choose how it gets represented. But I think too, when they had Guitar Hero World Tour, they started putting like real people in it.
Yeah,
and they put in like Hayley Williams, for example, and you could have her as an unlockable character. And the one that everyone was getting,
Rose and stuff like that. Yeah,
and people had a huge meltdown about them putting in Kurt Cobain because they managed to get the likeness to Kurt Cobain, and it's like it's really like antithetical to Kurt Cobain's image. Like you can get Kurt Cobain as your lead singer and make him sing "Misery Business" until Dave Grohl came out and went, "Kurt would have loved it."
Yeah,
he had a great sense of humour, and he loved dumb pop. Like Kurt Cobain's favourite artist was RuPaul.
Oh wow, okay.
Like he loved that shit. I just remember that would be like a thing of like it's so offensive to put Kurt Cobain in this game and make him sing like dumb pop music. It's like, but he loved dumb pop music.
Yeah,
he was a really like happy-go-lucky guy, except for that one time he wasn't.
And yeah, it's just a really weird thing where obviously, people's likenesses, people's, music licenses and stuff, they all, there's a lot of weird, legalese around them that we are not privy to, but...
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, other than the Beatles Rock Band that was like, fuck off and leave us alone, I've got like Green Day Rock Band on there, Lego Rock Band 1, 2, and 3 soundtracks, all imported into Rock Band 4, but some of the licenses had expired. And wait, I haven't got the full like Rock Band 1 song list on Rock Band 4. What happened? And then one day, like 5 of them just appeared on my console. I was like, wait, what? It's like, oh yeah, we've just like updated some of them to come back into the game. It's like, oh, awesome! Like, thank you. And
it's just yeah.
You know, you compare that to like, like fucking Deadpool, the video game, got taken off Marketplace like 3 years after it came out. It can never be bought ever again.
The absolute best example of that is Grand Theft Auto 4, where they released an update 10 years after it came out. And I was like, wow, look, Grand Theft Auto 4 is getting an update 10 years after release. Is this like, you know, evidence of a remaster or, you know, an updated version of the game or something like that? Or like, you know, tweaks to give it a physics engine similar to GTA 5? It's like, no, it was an update that removed songs what they'd lost the license for. So they released an update that took content away from a game you'd bought. That's amazing. Just like amazing in the sense that they had the balls to do it.
It's amazing in the sense of like, look how fucked we all are. Like, you can only laugh at how just horrendous that is in terms of a consumer experience. Of like, we're giving you a free update to remove songs from your game.
In that example, they did put some extra music in to replace it. The problem is the music they put in was modern music, but the game's set in the 2000s. So it like just it makes it anachronistic of like a game that's very heavily set in the 2000s, inspired by the 2000s like culture and political climate, has modern music in it. Yeah,
it was meant to be like mid-noughts kind of representation of New York City. And it's like, yeah, but would you like to listen to Carly Rae Jepsen? And it's like, I know Carl would. I know Carl would like to listen to Carly Rae, but it also takes you out of the experience.
Hey, do you know who else is in? Do you know who's in Rock Band?
Carly Rae Jepsen.
Carly Rae Jepsen.
And hopefully we will have a Carly Rae Jepsen song for the event that we're gonna host. I don't know whether we got that song or not, but maybe we will.
The thing is, though, like I remember where, like, you know, there are weirdo purists about Rock Band who were like, well, Carly Rae Jepsen's not a rock band. It's like, no, but it's a good song to sing. And I think our approach,
it's also a good way to get your friends that like might be a bit iffy about playing a video game with you all. Like, but it's not a video game. Come round and sing some Carly Rae Jepsen with us.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay. And I've got plenty of people into Rock Band that way of like, okay, I know that you don't want to sit here and like play the guitar solo of Gimme Chocolate.
Yeah.
But do you want to come round and we can like sing some fun, dumb pop songs and like, I'll play drums for those songs?
Yeah. And that's the thing about it. It's like really good for getting you know, people who have different musical tastes in there. So I remember an interview with the Guitar Hero makers when they said, well, there's a lot of these songs where, like, you know, you won't really think of them as a guitar hero. Like I said, something like Franz Ferdinand, they'd like Take Me Out on there. But no one really thinks of that as like, you know, a guitar classic. Like, no, but it's a fun song that a lot of people like. And it's like, that's a good, people who like that song will now play our game. And then they might like all the other songs by all these other artists that are like more into, like, in keeping with that theme.
And like Guitar Hero and Rock Band have made me discover a lot of artists that I would have otherwise not listened to. And that's the beauty of them. It's like going through and playing those campaigns where you play the entire set list of those songs. It's like, oh, wait, what's this band? Like, I've never heard of them, but this is a really cool song. But yeah, one of the most interesting things I think about Rock Band is that, as the wiki says, Harmonix previously developed the first 2 games in the Guitar Hero series, which popularized the gameplay of rock music with guitar-shaped controllers.
Because, that was the one, wasn't it, where it was like this weird internal split where like Rock Band was made by people who worked at Guitar Hero, and that's why like people consider Rock Band to be the true like successor to the series, because it has the people who actually made Rock Band Guitar Hero 1 and 2
exactly
a success in the first place.
Like it says here, the development was shifted over to Neversoft, and I think it was like Activision bought Guitar Hero, shifted it over to Neversoft because they were an internal studio. And then Harmonix are like, well, shit, what do we do? And then it became Rock Band versus Guitar Hero. It was like, well, we can't continue to make Guitar Hero, but what can we do to innovate on it? And it's like, well, the answer was make it a band game, not just a guitar game. And, you know, I would argue that...
Let's take a sip of my drink and focus on its face.
I'd argue for the most part, it's like improved the genre significantly. And I know that... one of your big frustrations that, I do agree with, but I understand the reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
Is just that you have to play one guitar, one bass.
It pisses me off to no end. Like, it's my number one chief complaint about Rock Band, and it is, okay, let's both play Through the Fire and Flames. Okay. And the thing is, that's the one I picked because that band has 2 guitarists, and the guitar solo in that song is a battle between those guitarists. Right. It's a duel. And there's no option to both play lead guitar, even though that band has 2 lead guitarists.
And that's the thing, is a lot of bands don't necessarily have lead guitarists for both.
But rhythm guitarist.
Why don't you have, lead guitar, rhythm guitar as an option? If you really want to keep it to, we only want to keep it as, like, the rock band experience of, like, you're not fighting over the same instrument. Like, there's not 4 people all playing drums, but you could give, rhythm guitar and lead guitar for songs that have that. Like, you can play Foo Fighters, a band that for a lot of the time, like more modern songs, have 3 guitarists in the band, and you only get an option for one person to play on guitar.
I don't understand why. It's okay, we want the Rock Band experience. Okay, in the story, yeah. But why can't I, when I'm playing quick play mode, have 4 people playing drums?
Yeah.
Why can't I have 4 people singing? Why can't we become Girls Aloud?
Exactly, yeah. Just, they added harmonies over time. They added keyboard for Rock Band 3, and it's like they had so many options, and just why didn't you, as you say, just for quick play mode, just let you do what you want? I guess the answer might be because they have like more significant choreography than the Guitar Hero games in terms of what your band's doing on stage. Like, there's technical limitations to that of like, well, all of a sudden you can't have like drums take up all the stage and whatnot, but like,
yeah.
It's wild to me that they've spent, as we said, like, it's 16 years since the first one came out, and they've never had the ability to do it.
Yeah, it's, like I say, it's my chief frustration with it, because I'm sorry to the bassists out there, but nobody playing a game called Rock Band is going in unless they're playing a Red Hot Chili song or a Motorhead song saying, I want to be the bassist. No one wants to be the bassist in a band. And you want to be the singer, or you want to be the lead guitarist, or maybe the drummer. No one wants to be the bassist.
I know plenty of bassists that would give you an argument of, I want to play the bass. But also,
because they like bass. No normal person then who's not like musically inclined or plays an instrument already wants to be the bassist in a band.
The bassist is the most forgotten member of the band, for sure, in terms of like just, mainstream people who, as you say, like, are less musically inclined. When you think of a band, the bassist is normally the last person you think of. Sorry, bassists. And like, obviously then keyboardists come a rank below that, and that's why they weren't even in the original Rock Band. But
hey, don't forget about in Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, his scissor player. Do you remember his scissor player?
No.
Like, Noel Gallagher's band High Flying Birds, for one of their songs, had a lady on stage playing the scissors into a microphone.
Well, it's a shame that the Gallagher brothers are just dickheads, though, isn't it?
The thing is, though, they're dickheads in a way that you can't tell if they're being serious.
They are 100% being serious. And
have you ever seen that, like great...
There are stories where I'm like, if they weren't taking themselves so seriously, this would be incredible, but they just seem like absolute brats.
They are pricks, but... People don't know the Gallaghers. It's the band Oasis, a British institution, like one of the pioneers of what became known as Britpop or Brit rock, depending on how you want to define it.
Shit music,
And I hate indie music and I hate Britpop. But
I don't necessarily hate like indie and Britpop, but I do hate Oasis.
I'm not the biggest fan of Oasis, but I do like that it's led by 2 brothers who fucking hate each other, and all they do in every interview. And people know what they're doing when they ask them in interviews, like, so you spoke to your brother yet? And they just go off on one.
I think one of my favourite things lately that I've seen about the Gallagher brothers was just when Lewis Capaldi came on stage. Are we back?
Yeah, so you were saying about Lewis Capaldi.
Sorry, yeah. So, Lewis Capaldi... recently, or not so recently, I don't know, because, I'm behind on current music things, but at one point just came on stage, and the intro was a video of Liam Gallagher being like, I don't know who the fuck Lewis Capaldi is, then Lewis Capaldi just comes out dressed as Liam Gallagher, acting like a knobhead.
The thing is, I've only met one person who's met them in real life because they used to work at the O2. It's like a venue in the UK, in Sheffield, where I'm based. And they said that it was like not even like one of the Gallagher brothers, it was one of their like cousins. It's like one of the lesser Gallaghers just kicking off downstairs that they weren't allowed into the VIP.
Of course. Yeah.
Of being like, do you know who the fuck I am? And they just legit just went, no. I went, I'm like Noel Gallagher's cousin. And I went, okay, unless you're Liam, you're not getting in.
Yeah, are you Noel Gallagher, though? No, fuck off.
And then apparently they just called him up, and just like one of the Gallaghers come down to like fucking peeled off his tits, and said, let him up, he's just going to complain otherwise.
Oh, God. But anyway, going back to Rock Band, the game, in addition to the 58 core songs included in the game disc, over 2,000 downloadable songs were released for the 360 and PS3 versions, and that's for, like, Rock Band, the game.
Yeah.
Like, we are now in 2023, and Rock Band 4 is still getting, like, a couple of songs put out every week or so.
Yeah, so I've just, like, done a quick check. I'm curious, and I've looked, and does anyone know how much it all costs? So there's a quick calculation someone did here of going through everything. If you bought every bit of DLC and all the games, it cost close to $4,000, and that's not including all the delisted content and exports that you can get.
Yeah.
So $4,000 worth of DLC sounds like a lot.
Yeah, and that's the thing where, like, I take kind of pride in the fact that I've got all, like, the oldest, like, the fact that I've got all of the exports that are, like, really hard to get now.
Yeah.
Like, that's the stuff where I'm like, I'm glad I managed to somehow glob on to all this content to put into 4.
And here's the thing, it does sound bad when you say there's like $4,000 worth of DLC, but here's the thing. I'm going to say 90% of that is probably something like not going to be to most people's musical taste. I'm not saying that 90% of it is bad, I'm saying that for each individual person who wants to buy songs for the game, they're not going to want to listen to like all of those songs. Because that amounts to about, 2,500 songs. You're not going to want to play 2,000 songs.
No, the thing is, it's got a very eclectic, like, amount of music. It's got spanning most genres over, 50, 60 years?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you're not going to want all of those songs. And even if you do, you don't necessarily need to buy, like, all 20 songs from one artist to enjoy Rock Band. Like, you can just, pick up a couple of songs here and there, like, of what you fancy. And it's more that I don't necessarily see that as a game where it's like, you don't need to complete the set list of every single song available. You need to just get what you want. And the fact that there's so many options is incredible.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's basically the best way to do DLC. Of like, Joey always says, like, a la carte. And it is. It's truly a la carte. You pick the stuff that you want. And it's priced, I'd argue, quite fairly.
I'd say very fairly. I think most songs, at least in Rock Band 4, when we checked, is like £1.59, I think. So, like, like nothing really. And then each song pack is like, a lot of them come in like a pack of 3 for like, £4 or something. And it's like, cool.
It just seems like a very reasonable cost for like a bit of DLC. It's like, it's probably the fairest DLC like rollout I've seen for a game,
especially a modern game.
Modern game that's made by EA, of all things.
At least the very first one was. I can't remember where we'll get to with like Rock Band 4, because I know at least nowadays Harmonix is owned by Epic Games, but that was after the release of Rock Band 4.
Yeah.
But yes, I will. Most people are very familiar with what the gameplay is for these games. It's like, of course, notes scroll down a screen. You have to like press the corresponding buttons and like strum or hit the drums in time or sing the notes, relatively close to what they were. Just as you would with a karaoke.
And here's a pro tip. If you ever want to like just 5-star all the songs, go into the music options, turn down all of the guitar sounds and place the microphone directly next to your own speakers. You'll get a perfect score for every song and just like 5-star everything. Just a good way to get through like the story mode of that game is just put the microphone next to your speakers because it just plays its own music. It just hears the music as it plays in the game.
I mean, fair enough. That's one way to just get around it. Or you could do it another way of don't sing the song, just sing the notes.
Yeah,
like, just hum the notes. Because it doesn't know what you're singing. And obviously that's not a fun way to do it, but it's easier to do it that way.
Thing
if
is,
you want to like get good scores.
Have you ever like played like games like guitar with people who take it that seriously? 'Cause I remember once I played with a guy who, if you didn't get a combo, he'd restart the song. Like I remember once we were like 2 minutes into the song and he missed one note, so he restarted the song without asking anybody.
Oh,
and I was like, I'm not having fun doing this.
No.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, don't be that person. Like, I really do enjoy when you're all on the same page, being like, okay, you know, a few of me and my friends were really into Guitar Hero and Rock Band back in the day, and like I would like have a couple of friends where we got really into it together by a choice, and like just us three would play together and try and like 5-star a bunch of songs. But that was all of us understanding that that's what we were there to do. It's like most people just want to have fun, and that's why, generally speaking, I've always played Rock Band like, you know, with everyone else, just play Rock Band, no fail mode, let's have fun. If you get 1 star, you get 1 star. If you get 5 stars, cool, awesome. Yeah,
and that's the one as well why we're doing it at the event, because I think the last time we did it, we held the event where we said we've got no fail on, except for if someone wants to play Through the Fire and Flames, because that's 7 minutes long. And if you're going to go in there and play a 7-minute long song, we don't want you to not be good at it, because no one wants to see someone fail for 7 minutes straight.
Yeah.
Like 3-4 minute song, if you're not very good at it, you know, it's fine. But it's like, that's a 7-minute song where 4 minutes of it is guitar solo.
And if you can't play it and we don't even get to hear the guitar solo properly, what
are we doing? Yeah. So I think that for that reason, when we were going through like, oh, what DLC should we get for it? It's like any song that's over 5 minutes long, it's like we're not buying it. Because it's 5 minutes long.
And yeah, it's weird that this game was so successful, though. Well, it's not weird that it was so successful, but like, it is kind of weird how big Guitar Hero and Rock Band were at the time.
Yeah, like it's like a cultural event.
It really was. Like, there's a small, tiny bit here on cultural impact, and it's like one line basically. It says, like weird. The Guitar Hero series, Rock Band had a significant impact on culture. Alex Rigopoulos and Aaron Egazi, the founders of Harmonix, were together named in Times Magazine's list of the 100 most influential people of 2008 for the creation of Rock Band. I don't necessarily always get on board with these lists of like most influential people or whatever, or sexiest people alive, blah blah blah. But
yeah, usually
just the fact that they were considered one of the most influential people in the world at the time because of Rock Band.
That's the thing as well, is because they never add the caveat of this year. It's always like, oh, it's the 100 sexiest people alive right now. But like that's the thing, it's implied, but because it's not actually said, you always get people, well, they're not more influential than like Nikola Tesla. It's like, well, yeah, they said this year.
Yeah.
It's implied that it's this year because they change the list every year.
Yeah, it's in the article for the Time Magazine list, guitarist Steven Van Zandt, I'm not sure where they're from. Let's give it a quick check.
What band are they in?
He's a member of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band.
Okay.
Which he plays guitar and mandolin.
That's a difficult thing to play.
And he has also appeared in The Sopranos, Carl.
Oh, yeah!
With Silvio Dante.
Oh, yeah, he's that dude! He's like a random guy who's just in a band, and he's like one of the best characters on the show. He's just like, yeah! Oh, I forgot, like, just the Sopranos, they got a guy from Bruce Springsteen's band. Just hired him.
And he claimed that in the history of rock and roll, Rock Band may just turn out to be up there with the rise of FM radio, CDs, or MTV.
Well, so you think about how many, like, you said, how many people got into certain bands. Like, there are, like, still, it's the same thing as, like, TikTok. Do you know, like, TikTok is, like, getting people to, like, Dragon Force, I mentioned that band earlier. I've been a fan of that band since before they were famous. or well known. Do you know how they got well known? For being infamously known as the most difficult song in Guitar Hero.
Yep, that's where I discovered them.
Yep, I've met like Herman Lee a couple times. I did like an event with him once, and he was talking about how everyone knows us from Guitar Hero. Like we owe our career to Guitar Hero because like people discovered our band like, the fuck is this 7-minute long song with a 4-minute long guitar solo in it? Why is it so difficult? And people trying to beat through the fire and flames on Expert was a genre on YouTube unto itself.
Yeah,
like, that
literally.
band, it owes its like success. Like they were a good band. Like I was aware of them before that, but that was their big break. I think it's similar with TikTok, isn't it? Of how many bands and stuff have had like resurgence from TikTok, like Metallica getting a resurgence from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
It
and
happens.
like obviously the most famous one of all time, just the Rick Astley. The Rick Roll. Like Rick Astley is now like he's recently just been like on stage like doing it with Foo Fighters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he's at that stage where he's like performing massive festivals and stuff because he's the Rick Roll guy.
Yep. Then you can you can scoff at it all you want. Yeah, people scoff at it all they want, but I'm sure the artists who are benefiting from that, increased visibility and success, would not agree with you when they look at their bank account.
Exactly, and it's funny where we live in the world nowadays. Obviously, we're talking a little bit of overlap between maybe what Band 4 coming out. I think it was 2015, but and Spotify becoming super prevalent is 2023, we're at a point where people we do not get paid for any Spotify streams. They do, but a pittance on a penny per stream, and per 1,000 streams or whatever. And it's they don't get the money they used to from people listening to their music. But we have an avenue like Rock Band where every song you just pay a fair price. And they get people. I would presume they get some kind of cut every sale.
It's the only reason that they'd be allowed to, I imagine. It's the same thing. People's idea of the value of certain things is wildly inflated. Or wildly distinct or different from what it actually is in real life. Because, we now live in a consumer's market in regards to entertainment. Mm-hmm. That's why we've got all these strikes, isn't it? Of companies are able to for years, we've been able to undersell and underpay artists and creatives because there's so much content now.
Mm-hmm. And people have gotten used to it. So now consumers almost expect things for free.
Yeah, or, they expect to pay a couple of dollars and get access to thousands and thousands of hours of entertainment. Yeah, the idea of playing £2 for one song sounds ridiculous. And so you think, well, that's probably a fair price for the amount of work that went into creating this one individual piece of content and to compensate everyone involved for that work fairly. More
than fair, yeah. And but when in comparison to nowadays, Spotify was we'll pay a tenner for the entire catalogue of basically all of music of all time.
Yeah. Except for if it's from Japan.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's obviously a lot of exceptions, but you compare the amount of stuff that isn't on Spotify to the amount of stuff that is on Spotify, it's a significant portion of music.
Yeah, and it's an interesting conversation, and it's one that's incredibly nuanced, but no one wants to have that nuanced conversation. No, I want free stuff. I don't want to pay this.
You want me to pay £1 something for a song so I can play it an infinite amount of times on my Rock Band game? How dare you?
Always reminds me of the great Lee Mack bit about when the price of stamps went up to 60p or something like that. It's a bit more now, but he broke it down. Look, the price of stamps has gone up. And, so all they really have to do is, I write a letter, and I put it in an envelope, and I put it on I put a stamp on it, I put it in a letterbox. And the postman picks that up and he puts it in a van, and he drives it to a sorting office. And that sorting office figures out where it's going to go, and then they put it on a plane. And that plane flies to another location in another sorting office, and that sorting office gets the letter, decides in which part of that the country it needs to go. They put it into a depot, where that depot sorts it further. They give it to a postman. That postman then drives to the location where the area I've sent the letter to is located. He gets out of his car, he walks for 10 miles, and he puts it through the letterbox. And for that, they want 60 pence. And it's when you break it down like that, it's if you individually try to do this, it will cost a hell of a lot more. Mm-hmm. So it's actually kind of reasonable when you think about it.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, we could talk about stuff like this for way, way longer, Carl, but just, remind everyone at home, if you are available Friday the 25th of August 2023 near Sheffield or in Sheffield or wherever you are, remind people what we're doing.
Well, we're playing Rock Band Karaoke at the Meltdown Gaming Bar. If you're about the day before or the day after, check out the Discord link you can find below, because, mine and Luke's Discord will be linked below. Are you coming down on Thursday or Friday?
No, I'll just be making it down on the Friday.
You'll be there on the Friday, but I'll be in Sheffield on the Thursday. So if you do happen to be about, we will be spending the day before and the day after, preparing and cleaning up respectively. So we'll be in.
I may be stuck in Sheffield on the Saturday anyway because of train strikes, so I'll see what happens with that.
Get it.
That'll be fun.
And just to end on as well, while we were taking the break, I just saw a shit post that I was putting in my fucking ass, and it is music related. So just to end on, it's just someone from Twitter here, @ScrewLooseEth on Twitter. UK rappers be like, "She suck on my willy, it's quite delightful. If I catch her in West Gloucestershire, you'll catch the rifle." I don't know why. That's fucking sent me. You'll catch the rifle. She sucks my willy. It's quite delightful. Oh God, that has sent me. Oh.
It's great because of how accurate that might actually be.
If I catch you in West Gloucestershire, you'll get the rifle. Oh, anything else to say, mate, before we close off?
Anything else to say is just thank you for joining us once again, and let us know which wiki won this week.